You're listening to Experience Imagination, a themed entertainment design podcast presented by Falcon's Creative Group. Every episode, we discuss a new topic with a panel of creative professionals. Hi, I'm Cecil McPurry, President and Chief Creative Officer of Falcons.
Hello, everyone. We have a lot going on here at Falcon, so we decided to take a short break from podcast production, but don't worry, we'll be back really soon with a fresh episode. What we're doing for this month is re-releasing one of our popular shows from last year. It's called Entertainment as Escapism. I think a timeless topic. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, everyone. I'm Audrey DeLong, your host for this episode. Cecil, welcome back for another really interesting episode. And this topic it's just a little bit different this time around. We're calling it Entertainment as Escapism. And we're going to talk to people at Falcons about their chosen method of escapism, which is kind of what kept us all sane over the last 10 months. I wanted to ask you, what was the motivation behind doing an episode like this?
We were talking, and we wanted to do something different and fresh. And as we were talking, a lot of people were bringing up things that are keeping them entertained. And they were so different and diverse. So I think that was the motivation. And, we had done in the past a couple of episodes that had multiple voices. Foot in the Door was in our minds, very successful and exciting internally. So I think this was motivated by those successful podcasts that we had in the past.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, we're going to get into the first one now. Cecil, we'll circle back with you at the end.
Perfect. I'm excited to hear.
We're here with Connor Swan. Welcome to the show, Connor. This is your first podcast, right?
Yes, it is. I'm so excited.
So what do you do on a daily basis here?
So I'm a set designer. I do a lot of drawing and planning. Sometimes I do a lot of illustration work. And then sometimes I do a lot of mostly color elevations and color plans.
So I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say that you like richly artistic shows.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely watch The Queen's Gambit. And then there's The Crown. Because I really love those 20th century period dramas, with these couture-like costumes with amazing cinematography. The way those scenes are shot, especially in The Crown, that's just fantastic. And then you have a series of unfortunate events, which I really love, because I really like that whimsical, based on more of a children's book type of thing. Really takes you to another world. There's a lot of world building, because it's 13 books with each taking place in a different location. And the best part is that it has a very quirky writing style with a very satirical and self-aware sense of humor, which I'm all for. I love that self-aware stuff. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And then there's his Dark Materials, which is one based on the book series by Philip Pullman. It's one of my favorite books, The Golden Compass. There's something about that story. This is so amazing that really revolutionized the young adult genre of books. Because it takes place in a parallel dimension aside from our own, that it really symbolizes a lot of the dark aspects that our society can really bring.
I have to ask you about The Crown, because there's been a little bit of controversy. So I wanted to get your take on that controversy.
I think I could see why, because especially in the fourth season. In seasons 1, 2, and 3, they take place in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. And, we can't really connect to any of those characters because, we didn't grow up in that time. We can't really relate to the problems that really anyone in the royal family has. But what was so interesting about the fourth season, which is when it's the 80s. So a lot of my parents' generation, that can really have an effect on people. This season was so controversial, I think, because this is when Princess Diana comes into the picture and Margaret Thatcher. In the 80s, they were, especially to Princess Diana.
Iconic personality all over the world.
Exactly. She was the one person in The Crown that I could connect with, because she was such a real human being.
Right.
She was really a breath of fresh air to everyone. She was called the People's Princess, and that's how everyone connected with her. There are these two other shows that really stand out to me. Scrubs, which is one of my favorite shows of all time.
I love that one.
It's so good. And then there's Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Those feel-good comedy dramas.
Yes.
Which I'm just those are just perfect. And just I really connect with these characters. Not all of them are perfect, which is really good. Scrubs is obviously a more sarcastic and witty type of
whimsical
humor.
Sort of.
Absolutely. And especially what I love about them is that they're very good at disconnecting audiences from reality, even though they do take place in everyday settings.
So I'm wondering, Connor, with your role here, do you think that you draw inspiration from any of these television shows into what you do here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What I try to do, I definitely take visual inspiration to what these experiences are going to be. Like, how can we really take our guests out of the everyday world visually? That's just one part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
What's equally as important is that how can our guests really connect to it on a personal level? And so I think when people really feel a connection in the worlds that we create, I feel like we really done our jobs really well.
Well, Connor, it was great to have you on.
Thank you so much. This is so fun.
Thank you. And now we're speaking with Jimmy Stewart. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
This is your first podcast, so I wanted to welcome you to the program and ask you what you do at Falcons.
I am a junior CAD designer here at Falcons.
Perfect. So when you go home, you probably want to unwind a little bit.
Definitely.
How do you do that?
Mostly, I'm really big into gaming. Gaming is kind of my escape to really leave this world and enter into something different.
What platforms do you prefer? Do you play online?
Kind of all of them. I'm a really big Nintendo fan since I was really little. But, as I got older, I started going into more mature stuff, sort of in the PlayStation realm. And then a couple years ago, I got more into the PC gaming realm. So I kind of have my bases covered on pretty much, if it comes out, I have a way to play it.
Talk to us a little bit about the genres that you're drawn toward.
Current genres, really open world adventure. It doesn't matter if it's RPG, where it's just, I'm role-playing as something, leveling up, or if it's an action adventure game where kind of free roam, free combat, where you don't have to take turns, you're dipping and dodging and attacking, but making sure you're careful. But it's really the exploring stuff that gets me excited. Breath of the Wild from Nintendo was kind of like that game that just hit every single spot, because it's just... You can walk and you'll find something, and that's the whole point of the game to me, is discovering. That's the escape, is finding something new in a world you have no clue what's going to be around the next corner.
So speaking about the fact that we were all kind of stuck at home during the pandemic, we didn't have a lot of social interaction with our friends, but there was an outlet online if you were into games. So talk a little bit about what that did for your psyche.
During this whole stay-at-home situation, I think a lot of people can agree that Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch really kind of came at the most opportune time it could, where you're living in an idyllic world, creating a world you want with nothing but nice animal neighbors treating you kindly, but also having the ability to fly to your friend's village, see what they're doing, trading items that you have that they don't. And that alone was easily the thing that helped connect a solitary situation where you're by yourself, you're not really able to interact with anybody hands-on, but you can go to your friend's town, see them and their avatar, their villager, and interact with them and talk to them as if you are right next to each other.
Did you play The Sims?
I used to be so into The Sims, really just into building, which is convenient for what I do.
Right.
I kind of fell off of it recently, but I still have it installed on my computer, occasionally hopping back in, building a house.
CAD designers build stuff, so was that kind of an inspiration for you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the building games that got me into doing what I really want to do now. So
yeah, it sounds like you're kind of living the dream.
Exactly, yeah.
So let's talk about some of the stuff that you watch. Are there any genres in particular that you're drawn to?
A lot of home improvement. I love watching like Property Brothers. HGTV is easily one of my favorite just channels to kind of binge stuff. I love House Hunters. I'm not in the realm to buy a house right now, but I love seeing houses and being like, I love that. I hate that.
But again, it's construction, it's building.
Exactly. I see something, I like that. And then in the back recess of my mind down the line, I could be like, I remember seeing that. Let me try to implement a detail like that into what I'm working on.
Great. Well, this has been a fun conversation.
Oh, for sure.
Thanks for joining us, Jimmy.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to speak with Stephanie Alfonso. What do you do at the studios?
So I am a junior graphic designer. So I help out the graphic design manager, and we do packages and presentations for Falcons or clients, and we put together graphics based on whatever project we're working on, whether it's like wall applications or logos or designs like that bring the whole concept together.
So when you go home, and we've had a lot of home time lately, there's so many streaming options out there. There's also a lot of gaming options. We have podcasts, of course, reading. What realm do you dive into when you want to escape?
Usually it would be like a good TV show or a book. Honestly, I'm still a reader, so.
That's great.
Yeah, fun.
What genre?
I typically go for like a good mystery book. I rather like try to picture it in my head, like what's happening, and like put it all together and figure out who's going to be the bad guy at the end. So
I see.
This is
Paperback or hard?
hardcover.
Oh, look
Yeah.
at you. So old school.
I am. I'm
That's
very old
surprising
school.
since you're so young. So, any particular authors?
Mary Higgins Clark is a really good option.
I've read her a lot.
When I was younger, it's funny. I can't remember the author now, but I read like the whole Nancy Drew series. Mm-hmm. So I was a big Nancy Drew fan. Still am. I could probably go back and tell you exactly what happened in every single book. And it's been like 10 years maybe. So yeah.
Have there been any books that turned into a movie or a television series that you read and you were like, oh, the book was better?
I think everyone always defaults to like Harry Potter. Like they're very, very similar, and they did a great job trying to like match the two. But I always think the books are usually better. There's something about just like sitting and reading and like doing your own visual in your head about it that I don't know.
When they have to condense all that material.
Yeah. And again, usually they do a great job of doing it. But I don't know. I was always more of the reader person, so I'd rather hold the book in my hand.
For somebody who has a visual job, I would almost think the opposite is true.
Well, I don't know. Like, when I sit and read, it's, like, weird because I so vividly picture how it could play out if it were, like, adapted into, like, a show or a movie.
Right.
Like, scene by scene. Like, my brain just, like, automatically starts putting together the pictures.
Are there any shows that people around the office are talking about that you're like, okay, I have to see that one?
So, we were talking about it recently, Queen's Gambit. That one was awesome. Like, the production was executed so well, and, like, the storyline was really great, which is based on a book, which... Like, that's typically the ones I like, too, is the ones that, like, I can go back and then read the book about it. So now I have another book on my list I can read.
So let's talk about maybe what you read here or what you watch on television. Does it influence any of the work you do at Falcons?
In a way, it reminds me just, like, creatively the way sometimes our brains work. And so I always think, like, visual designers and, like, specifically for me, a graphic designer, like, we take really complex information or ideas and we kind of break them down and then start to put them all back together in a visual way. And so, like, I kind of do that when I sit and watch something or I read a book. Like, I'm breaking down everything and then putting it together. So it kind of correlates in a weird way. The same big idea.
Well, excellent, Stephanie. We appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Thank you.
We are here with Andrew Tober. Andrew, what do you do at the studio?
I'm the senior creative manager. Basically, I work with a lot of the designers and everything to just make sure that projects get from point A to point B, everything's on task, and helping with the creative flow and design, and just making sure that the whole project gets carried through from beginning to end.
So hopefully when you go home, you have some downtime and you maybe get in front of the television or in front of a gaming console. What does Andrew Tober do to escape?
Usually I go home, we hang out with my family, my wife, my son, Ethan. The things we do miss, of course, is going to the theme parks. But for the most part, when going home, it's sitting down, having dinner together, or, of course, like everybody does, going home, watching, Disney Plus, or we recently got, HBO Max. The Mandalorian, I think, was one of the ones that we really got into. And literally, we would get up in the morning, Friday, first thing in the morning, we would watch that episode, even before school, even before work, just because we were always constantly worried about getting spoilers for that show.
Oh,
well,
yeah, you got to get out ahead of that.
Well, literally one morning I woke up at 4, was like, okay, I'll look through the news. And already at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, people are posting in the title, of course, spoilers. Like, this person showed up, and it's just like, oh, well, I guess I know that's going to happen. So, but usually it wasn't that bad. And that's kind of why we would get up in the morning to watch those shows, just because we all enjoyed it. Of course, who didn't like Baby Yoda or Grogu, however you want to say it? Oh, potential spoiler, sorry. Well, the season's over. It's been a while. So hopefully you've seen all the episodes by now. Later, we would go try to find all the YouTube videos of like people breaking down the episodes. Like, oh, did you notice this in the background? Or, oh, there's this symbol here. That means this character's coming, or something like that. So then, of course, once it's done, the whole week you're just sitting there looking, saying, oh, well, I bet this is what's going to happen next. I think this character's going to hear, oh, I saw this rumor, kind of thing. And so it was always, again, like a little bit of Christmas morning on Fridays for us to watch that.
Did you watch the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian?
Yes. They kind of broke it down, I think, to like different sections. Like the one was specifically about the new LED surround screen technology, which is amazing. Something
that we've been talking about in the studio quite a bit because they're using virtual production.
Yes, exactly. And that's just something that's like, it's one of those ideas that, technology's finally caught up to the point where they could do these surrounding LED screens. But then once they finally could do it, you're like, that's so brilliant and so simple.
Right.
Like, why hasn't this been around even longer?
I know. Oh.
I mean, it just makes it so much easier. Not to mention, like, for actors to get into the scene, they understand their environment, and they're not in this surrounded by a green screen and just pretending. They're literally pulling themselves into those environments. Mm-hmm. With the creative process, it's never a linear process. It's always you're trying this out, you're doing that. Some things work, some things fail, some things, and you're always learning. And so you kind of get to hear like them say like, oh, this is what I did in my creative process. And it's like what we do here. It's like there's always this one thing that comes out of left field that hits you, knocks you off target or where you're going. And then you end up coming with a creative solution that's even better than where you plan on going. So so I always love hearing those processes from these guys, especially at that level.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much parallel, I think, that happens on the television production side and what we do here.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much for being on this episode and sharing how you escape the real world.
All right, thanks. Thank you for having me.
And now we're speaking with Crystal Famey. And Crystal, what do you do at Falcons?
I am the operations manager at Falcons, so I kind of fill a lot of different roles. Basically, whatever needs to get done at the company, I help out with. So just day to day, whatever task comes my way is what I typically do.
So first of all, you probably have multiple streaming platforms. Talk about what you've been hooked on lately.
Definitely fell into the Queen's Gambit role. I mean, that was an amazing TV show, and it's one of those things that I've been recommending to a lot of people, so it's a good one.
On it?
I like the visualization, that she would see the chess games on the ceiling and play those through. And I also liked that there was a safety in her friend network. Everybody was really there to support her, and you didn't see too often where people were trying to hold her back in her career and her process. So that was really, I felt like there was a different take on that type of a story, which was really refreshing to have something a little bit new and exciting.
So in general, what kind of genres attract you?
I like British reality TV show.
Oh, tell us more.
The competitive shows, of course, like the Great British Baking Show. You can't not mention that because that's a classic. It's been on for so many years. And I didn't really start watching it until the pandemic hit. So I became a big fan of Mary Berry. So I really enjoyed watching that a lot. And then, of course, I tried to do some of those baking experiments.
How'd that work out?
Not too great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not great. But, they were edible. So,
okay.
Step one, success.
Baking's harder than cooking.
Yeah.
Got to be precise.
So I just enjoyed that. It was a nice escape. I also started watching The Repair Shop, another British show, and that is, they go in and they have these like family heirlooms or these old pieces of art that they're restoring. Nice. And so they usually come in and they've got this story about how this piece might not be valuable, but it's something that is important to their family, and really they kind of go into the lineage of who they're going to hand it down to. And then, of course, they get into the process of how they're restoring something. I used to work in restoration, so that appeals to me a lot. So I felt that it's nice to have that being portrayed, because a lot of people think that when something's broken, you just throw it out. But so there's all these different options for ways to keep things.
So let's talk about your husband a little bit. We all know your husband. We've met him. Do you share similar taste in movies, music, television shows?
No, I normally have to convince him to watch shows with me. He's not much of a TV person, but I got him on board with the Great British Baking Show. I think it's mostly because he liked to impersonate the accents. So he had fun with that. But one show that we do watch together is Schitt's Creek, which I could go on for a very long time talking about how much I enjoy that show. I don't think that I have watched a show that has made me laugh until I cry as many times as that show has done. I just think the Moira Rose's character, I have never seen a character like her on television before. The words that she decides to use, I had to look up half of the words that she's using, just because some of them are so archaic, and then some of them are just words that she makes up and you don't even know if it's real or not. But I think that she is a very, very fun character, and I would love to be like her one day.
It's a unique program for sure. Award-winning program.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining, Crystal.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Well, we're sitting down with Andreas Lacharet now, and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
What do you do at Falcons?
I am a interactive artist, which is kind of a blanket term for someone who works on many facets of interactive design, very similar to game design, but for more experiential products and things for wider audiences in general.
So do you play a lot of online games?
Absolutely, yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, I might game once a month, to 10 being like, it's definitely multiple hours every night. Where do you rank?
20, for sure.
So what are some of those games that are taking up a lot of your time these days?
So right now, I'm putting a lot of time into Apex Legends. It's incredible. It's a game by EA and Respawn Studios, famous for the Titanfall series. It's a battle royale, which is very popular right now, but it tends to find new and exciting ways to differentiate itself from all the other battle royale titles out there. And for people who don't know, battle royale is typically 1 versus 100. It's you, and you have to do everything and anything you can to be the last man standing. So it's a very competitive game type. And a lot of times you'll see that battle royales tend to be bogged down in just the pure competitive nature of the game style. But the Apex guys have figured out a way to pull in more of a general audience, people who wouldn't normally play these types of games, with their narrative design, which is really, really cool and something that keeps me coming back every day.
So the genre MMO, so massive multiplayer online games, is that pretty much what takes up most of your time?
Typically, I'm playing competitive team-based shooters.
Okay.
So I come from a background where I used to play a lot of paintball. So that was something that, I can't do as much anymore. So these games kind of fill that gap where it's on-the-fly thinking, critical thinking skills, hand-eye coordination. All that stuff is key to becoming proficient at those titles in general. And that's the reason I really gravitate towards them. There's something really fun about no two matches are the same.
It's interesting that you used an example from the physical world, how there's a parallel in the gaming world. Are there any other examples that you can think of that you've played?
I've just been pouring a ton of time into a game called Satisfactory. This game is all about creating the most efficient and aesthetically pleasing, if you so wish, factories, bringing ore from one spot, smelting them, creating different components, and then those components build new buildings. And it's just, by the end, you have conveyor belts upon conveyor belts of things moving throughout an environment. This alien landscape suddenly becomes an industrial factory that you have built from the ground up with up to 4 other friends. Okay. So it becomes a really fun cooperative experience as well.
Nice.
Of it's very similar to building with Legos, where it's this community building vibe. It's really cool.
What you do as a hobby, and I would say this pretty passionate hobby of yours is playing games, that translates really well into what you do at Falcons.
Absolutely. It's really fun to play something new and innovative and go, okay, cool. They figured this out. Now how do I apply this in a way these guys haven't even figured out yet, and to what we do, bringing these experiences to people in the real world, getting to walk up to something and interact with it is a different kind of experience than just sitting behind a screen and doing it. But we're slowly seeing those worlds being completely bridged with things like AR and VR. So that's something really fun to experiment with.
Well, thank you, Andreas. This was fascinating. I really appreciate you joining this episode.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on here.
Well, that was really fun to hear from our fellow Falcons. So what did you think?
Yeah, it's exciting. Wow, the diverse elements that they choose to escape in, from not digital books, but hard books and games. That was really interesting to hear.
Yeah, sports, television shows, movies.
Exciting.
I kind of want to hear your thoughts about what you're binging lately.
Right now, we just watched Bridgerton. That's been fun. We're watching Suits.
Oh.
Which I know was popular and was running for 9 seasons, but we came across it and started watching it and was very impressed with the writing. And so for me, it's like a challenge often to, embrace something, because I tend to decipher stuff and try to break it down because we're into storytelling, But sometimes we just need to relax and just enjoy stuff. So, that's been something that I do together with Marty. And I've been doing a lot of music lately. We have our Falconeers band here. And in the evenings, I'll try to drop a couple of tracks and tighten up my guitar playing. And that's been fun. And I picked up a painting that I had done when Marty and I first got married. I have an oil painting that was from our honeymoon. It was a picture of Marty in Sonoma when we went to the winery. And after I got back from the honeymoon, I started this oil painting, and it was about 20% done. And so I finally started to pick that back up and got the oil paints out, stole it from my daughter, and I started painting again.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's what COVID has done. I've actually had time to go back and finish stuff that I had started from the past. So the creative director in me, I'm redlining my own work, and I'm not very good at it. So I gotta polish my work. So totally fun.
Cecil, that sounds fantastic, and we can't wait to see your new masterpiece.
Think of how
I would like to thank all of the guests for joining us today. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Experience Imagination, a Falcons Creative Group production. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends. To keep up with our latest news, visit us on the web at falconscreativegroup.com and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please email us at podcast@falconscreativegroup.com.